HIMARS, F-16s, Abrams, ATACMS, Patriots. All this weaponry has been helping to defend Ukrainian territory from the onslaught of Russian invaders for many months and years. These armaments are among the best in the world. There is one more thing that unites them. They are all American. And in light of recent events, this has become a problem. The halt of American military aid forces us to prepare to find replacements for American weapons. Of course, this is not certain yet, but there should be a plan B. And looking ahead, we can say that it is possible to replace them
with a... Oh.
Subtitles made by difficulty. What analogs of American weapons exist in the world and Europe, or perhaps in Ukraine? Will this replacement come without losses in defense capability? We will tell you all about this and more in just a moment. The first weapon we will focus on is the F-16. Ukraine has been waiting too long for these fighters. But the wait was worth it. The aircraft is the best in its generation.
It has been battle tested. It is quite cheap due to mass production. Therefore, it is economically advantageous because for minimal money, for minimal cost, you get maximum efficiency.
Of course, no one will be taking the F-16s away from Ukraine. And European countries have promised to deliver more American fighters. But what if the USA now prohibits this? Undoubtedly, this news is not the best. To be honest, there is no full replacement for the American one. However, European fighters could be added to the existing ones and thus meet the needs. For example, there are Swedish Gripens. These two aircraft are similar, at least because both are multi-role, meaning they can perform the tasks of fighters, attack aircraft, and bombers. The Gripen can carry the same armament as the F-16, with the only difference being that it can mount weapons of both American and European manufacture under its wings, which is undoubtedly an advantage. There is another aircraft. It's the French Mirage. By the way, Ukraine has already received the first fighters from Paris. To be honest, the French one doesn't quite measure up to the F-16. The American one is too versatile. However, the Mirages are primarily additional carriers for French and British long-range missiles.
It has 9 hardpoints, as I mentioned. But it's worth noting that it can't even be left near Russian aircraft. It carries the most advanced weaponry, including those very Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles.
Speaking of Scalp and Storm Shadow, they are an excellent replacement for the American ATACMS. It's not quite right to compare them because some are ballistic and others are cruise missiles. But they can hit targets at approximately the same distance. Moreover, the French and British are more open to attacking Russian territory with missiles. If we are talking about missiles, the Ukrainian Neptune, in its land-based version, can also replace the ATACMS. There's no point in discussing its specifications because Ukrainian developers are constantly improving it, and the range stated just 6 months ago might be completely different now. The most difficulties lie in replacing the Patriots. This system is the main strength of Ukrainian air defense. The air defense system can simultaneously detect and identify more than 100 aerial targets and continuously track 8 of them. Another advantage is that the American can fire at multiple targets at once. But its main advantage is that the American can shoot down ballistic missiles Other European air defense systems in Ukraine do not deal with ballistics, but the Ukrainian SAM can. We are talking, for example, about the Kelchin missile system, which became known in 2021. Even then, developers talked about the SAM's ability to hit targets at a distance of 280 kilometers, and it could detect them at a distance of up to 400 kilometers.
The proposed system is multi-channel. It has a missile that provides a long range of over 200 kilometers. This missile is highly maneuverable and can engage many targets, thereby ensuring versatility in conflict against both aerodynamic targets like aircraft, cruise missiles, and so on, as well as ballistic missiles.
As for heavy equipment, it's a bit simpler. The American Abrams tank is undoubtedly a good weapon.
Today, the M1 Abrams is considered the best main battle tank in the world. It has been around for a long time, but over the years it has been repeatedly upgraded and has proven itself very effective in combat against Soviet and Russian-made tanks. There is every reason to believe that this machine significantly surpasses the ones currently deployed by the Russians and the ones currently deployed by the Ukrainians.
But it also has its downsides. For example, the American tank uses a turbine instead of a diesel engine. This in turn means that fuel has to be transported separately for it, and if the tank is hit, it cannot be repaired in Ukraine. Regarding logistics, this is a problem for all Western tanks. Talking about Abrams analogs doesn't quite make sense. It's more important to simply have a large number of tanks. Speaking of European tanks, Ukraine has both Leopards and Challengers. Additionally, there is the domestic tank, the Oplot. Although it is, roughly speaking, an evolution of Soviet predecessors, its characteristics prove that such tanks are hard to find even in the West. The Ukrainian BM has received, in particular, a digital fire control system and an automatic loading system. Thanks to the latter, the crew consists of 3 instead of 4 people. Additionally, the rate of fire is quite fast, 8 rounds per minute. One of the most important features of the Oplot is its armor. Penetrating it is practically impossible. There is even a replacement for the indispensable Starlinks. Yes, it's not a weaponry, but on the front line, it's hard to imagine life without them. So, if Musk does decide to leave Ukrainian fighters without communication, there will still be a connection. Starlinks will be replaced by a French operator. According to media reports, it is already cooperating with European organizations and has equipment that can be quickly deployed in Ukraine. Of course, we don't want to talk about replacing American weaponry and other things at all. However, it's reassuring that there is indeed a replacement. Even more reassuring is that Ukrainian weapons can partially replace American ones. Write in the comments what you think about the replacements and analogs of American weaponry. Also, like this video and be sure to subscribe to our new Arsenal channel so you don't miss anything interesting. They promised to protect, but they didn't keep their word.
Someone held consultations. No. Why? Because it's clear in Russian. This is how it was in Russian. And to all the other guarantors of the Budapest Memorandum, it was because to this country, to these people, to these security guarantees.
And now they have even started to accuse...
You had 3 years. You should have finished it in 3 years. You shouldn't have started it. You could have finished the deal.
Such statements would never have been made if Ukraine had nuclear weapons. And everyone knows that it did.
This is the most wormy button that we have twisted. Yes. So on the command launch, you press this button and I'll be on the other side. And we press simultaneously. Attention, calculation. Punch. Full readiness, combat mode, our plan, our code as well. 9 launchers received the command to launch. Now we'll see what's there. I'll turn on the cameras, the upstairs, and we'll see what we've done here. So 120 tons, or rather now.
Moreover, in 1991, the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world, after the USA and Russia, was located on Ukrainian territory.
There were 1,072 nuclear warheads in service. If we were to combine their power, we could destroy planet Earth several times over.
What other weapons did Ukraine have? Why were the Americans particularly keen on eliminating Kyiv's nuclear potential? And is it possible to revive Ukrainian nuclear weapons? All about this already in a moment. Let's start with the fact that Ukraine indeed had a massive nuclear potential. Being the third in the world in nuclear capability is no joke. However, they posed a threat to the USA, not to Russia. Ukrainian intercontinental missiles were programmed to target American cities, which is why the United States was very vigilant to ensure that no nuclear weapons remained in Ukraine.
So there's chaos in Russia?
There was chaos in Russia, there was chaos in Ukraine, there was chaos in the post-Soviet space. But there was no chaos in the USA, and specialists came there and monitored every step, every screw. The US controlled everything. Everything was taken away. What remained was destroyed.
As for the Russian Federation, it was impossible to use nuclear weapons against it. Firstly, the minimum range of an intercontinental missile is thousands of kilometers. The Russian Federation is too far beyond the range. And secondly, to strike the Kremlin, permission had to be given by the Kremlin.
I didn't have the black suitcase, it was in Moscow. I could only talk on the phone with the commander of the missile army. He could fulfill my requests or not to mention the power of attorney. This was the reality. Nuclear weapons were outside of Ukraine's control.
Now, talking about lost hopes, or more precisely nuclear weapons, is foolish. The decision was made, and it cannot be changed. But Ukraine has not yet lost its potential. Official Kyiv could indeed acquire nuclear weapons. A former Ukrainian foreign minister even mentioned a dirty bomb.
As for nuclear weapons, we have all the necessary conditions. To ensure that at least a dirty nuclear weapon could end up in Ukrainian hands, it's not what the USA and Russia currently possess, but it could be a deterrent. They are furious beyond the border, but we must think about our own security.
According to him, this is possible if the issue of Ukraine's NATO membership disappears from the agenda. However, when we talk about a dirty bomb, we are primarily playing into Russia's hands.
We should not talk about any dirty weapons because Putin uses all this against us as a provocation, claiming that we are preparing to strike Russia. But it will spread to other countries.
The principle of operation of a dirty nuclear bomb is as follows.
It is the filling of any warhead, which is in missile carriers, for example in drones, explosives, with enriched or unenriched active uranium. If it's a large charge, it will cover kilometers. If it's small, hundreds of meters. They will affect very few people, but will contaminate them with radiation, as well as Ukrainian territories.
Such an option, although real, frankly does not suit us. After all, we are not Russia, which doesn't care about anyone. And if we are talking about a conventional nuclear weapon, there are certain nuances. On the positive side, Ukraine has scientific potential.
Ukraine has at least scientific potential, and the Kharkiv Nuclear Research Center was known worldwide. It was there and still is. There is actually an experimental nuclear reactor.
We also have uranium. Ukraine already uses it in the operation of nuclear power plants. However, the uranium used for civilian purposes is different from the same element needed to create a bomb.
For civilian use, uranium typically needs to be enriched from 3 to 5%. But in order to utilize uranium effectively in military applications, it typically needs to be enriched from 95 to 99%.
If this is not done, it quite simply won't explode in any way. Well, to enrich uranium, the most common method is centrifugation. And such a special facility, besides being expensive, also requires a huge amount of energy.
It rotates at a speed of about 90 revolutions per minute. It must rotate not for a day or two, but for years without stopping. And there are thousands of such centrifuges in this facility. A uranium enrichment facility is one of the largest structures that humanity has created with its own hands.
If we assume that Ukraine is saving electricity for the sake of nuclear weapons, it needs to decide whether it is willing to spend simply astronomical amounts of money.
Such a project to create nuclear weapons would cost approximately between 30 to 50 billion US dollars.
So globally, Ukraine can make nuclear weapons. The question is about the cost, especially considering that Kyiv is being increasingly dissuaded from NATO, while security guarantees are not being offered. The game might be worth the candle. But we must not forget that when we talk about the cost of nuclear weapons, it's not just about money. Indeed, it involves much more.
In fact, the entire system is built in such a way that if someone launches the first strike, then everything will be destroyed afterwards. Great. I wish you well.
And what do you think? Does Ukraine need nuclear weapons? Write your thoughts in the comments and also like this video, and be sure to definitely subscribe to our New Arsenal channel so you don't miss all the most interesting content.